I am Sir De Leon. We will begin the next question with you. What is a complex issue or conflict you have resolved in a past leadership role?
Thank you for the question. One of the things that I was able to work on in my past 5 years as serving as president of Delta Alpha Zeta chapter has really been training and preparing sorority sisters in a space where they might not have been prepared to submit, to sit, or to serve. One of the reasons why a part of my platform is about making sure that we have the Blue Reserve is to make sure that there are sorors who are always prepared and ready to serve in the seat. So that means no matter what happens, no matter what seat you're sitting in now, you have to be ready to serve because when Zeta calls, we answer, right? And one of the things that's been important is to make sure that sorors have had the opportunity to learn different roles at any given time. You might not want to be a grammatius, but you need to shadow the grammatius so that if there's a vacuum, you can sit and you can serve. You might not want to be a bossless, but you need to serve your chapter to make sure that the chapter can continue to move on and be healthy. And those are some of the seeds that we've been planting in terms of a lot of the work that we've been doing. Shadowing one another, having honest and critical conversations. What happens when you're in this seat that you did not expect? Okay, how do I get through it? How do I make sure that I can see this through to the end? And what support systems and what pillars do I need in place to do this? So I've had to do this over the past few years. And training sorors, coaching sorors also means that sometimes the information can't come from you. You might have to delegate that so the information can be received from a soror that will actually be able to deliver the information so the message gets to the intended participant. So really establishing clear protocols around training, really establishing a consistent space where we're having open, honest communication, making sure our reports are very transparent in terms of everything that we're working on, and then also making sure that sorors feel supported, loved, and seen because everybody should have a spotlight when they're working hard. And it is not easy to do this. We all volunteer, but that's what we've been working on. And that's what I've had to do in the past few years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sir De Leon. Sir Faber, you are up next. I will repeat the question. What is a complex issue or conflict you have resolved in a past leadership role?
Thank you for the question. Balancing as a new chapter, balancing all of the talented sorors that are in the chapter who are passionate, have different experiences, different expectations, different ideas, and who many of are reclaimed sorors, figuring out how to balance leading the chapter and making sure that we get the business done while also teaching sorors who are just returning back to Zeta and ensuring that we have a safe space for them to learn while also understanding and not stopping the business. So oftentimes we equate ourselves to a teaching chapter because we have to take those moments out in chapter meetings to say, to acknowledge the room, right? If we feel like people are not understanding what's taking place, to just pause and say, hey, this is what this means, this is what we're doing, and give a highlight of it. And then creating those intentional spaces outside of chapter meeting for reclamation workshops so that sorors understand what Zeta looks like today, doing how to be a delegate workshop so that newer sorors or sorors that haven't been around for a long time understand how to represent the chapter on a state level, regional level, or national level, and creating those intentional offline opportunities for sorors to understand what it is. This kind of alleviates some of the stress that we were having in the beginning with sorors just not understanding, if they hadn't been active since undergraduate and now they're coming into a graduate space, it's very different in how we operate. So we wanted to be very intentional about making sure that sorors felt heard, understood, and that they knew what was going on moving forward so that they were ready to lead. Also creating additional pipelines for leadership and allowing sorors to be able to shadow existing sorors as we transition our executive board so that they understood what they were going into, having forums similar to this for candidates that are in the role, sorors that are serving in the role, and candidates that are interested in serving in the future so that there's a smoother transition and sorors knew what they were signing up for. So kind of assuaging some of that.
Thank you, Sir Faber. Sir Leary, you are next. What is a complex issue or conflict you have resolved in a past leadership role?
Thank you for that question. Complex issues do deal with leadership, especially when you become a new basilisk, for example, and your leadership style may be different than the past basilisk or the past person in that position. Everyone has a leadership style in your chapter, your first anti, your second, your third, your treasurer. Everyone you work with has a leadership style. I have learned that open communication and open conversation and honesty about roles and about and educating other sorors about the way each of us do things always helps alleviate such conflict when a Sora says, well, I did not understand why you did it that way. Why did you do this? If you explain things to people and give a little bit of history behind why you're doing something, and never make them feel as if they have lost when you're explaining things to them. When it comes to even deeper conflict with sorors not getting along, I've learned that chapter mediation, I've learned that nipping things in the bud, I've learned that honesty and integrity are important when it comes to making sure that sorors do their best to treat each other well. In addition to that, giving sorors the tools that if they are not treated well, that they have the opportunity to reinforce their own personal strength so that they can then stick up for themselves, make sure that they are heard, make sure that their voices are heard, and never stop that communication and always keep striving so that people can get along or solve their problems, solve their solutions to make sure that we could move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sora Leary. Sora Morrison Roper, what is a complex issue or conflict you have resolved in a past leadership role?
Thank you so much for that question. So I'm going to move into more of my professional life because it's actually how I lead as a basilisk. I have how I've led as a leader in the sorority as well. Um, I'm a scientist. We got cited or we had a deficiency for not meeting a standard, right? And so the whole institution, all the hospitals that we're involved with, all had to solve this problem. So we had identified what the issue was. So that's one. We have to figure out what the issues are. And then we have to conduct a root cause analysis. So what does it look like? What exactly is the actual problem? And we have to drill down until we're sure we figured out exactly what it is, because if we don't, then we can't solve it, right? We have to engage the key stakeholders. So am I reaching out to all the supervisors, all medical directors, quality? Do I have to contact some vendors? Do I need to re-explain, or do we have a full understanding as to the regulatory compliance, right? Operating manuals. Do we have a full understanding as to what the need actually is and what's the best practice for those standards? And then we have to figure out solution options. So are we changing workflows? Do we have to purchase some equipment? Is there a financial cost? Is there a time cost? Is there a volunteer cost? And then we have to standardize our approach for how we're going to fix the problem. And we have to have the buy-in for all the stakeholders, right? We also have to figure out how we're going to validate it. Is this going to be something that when we implement it, it's going to work? So we have to evaluate that and create SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures, so everyone can follow it. And then we have to train everyone and make sure everyone is competent. And then we have to have a go live and implement ongoing monitoring. And I say all this to say is that I have a very scientific mind. When you know exactly what the problem is and you build out a plan for solution finding, you can't fail. And that's how I lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sora Morrison Roper. We are at our next and final question, and we will begin with Sora Faber. What is your overall vision for New York State, and how will you ensure measurable outcomes across all chapters?
Thank you for the question. So my overall vision for New York State is that chapters feel equipped, engaged, and excelling in their respective areas. I mentioned briefly in my opening a Ready report, which is a statewide accountability system that allows chapters to see how they're doing in measures that we all agree to compared to their peers. It's a blinded report, so it allows chapters to have an anonymous ranking either by numbers. I always tell chapters that we can use superhero names, whatever they prefer to represent themselves, so that when they see the report, they're not seeing their specific chapter on the report, but they're seeing their name so that no one knows how the others are doing, but they can see how they're ranking against others in the state. They would get individual reports of their performance. And again, these are on agreed upon measures that we came to the table and said, this is what a healthy New York State looks like. So those individual reports of performance, a geographical roll up of those same reports so that each geographical area can provide support to chapters that may need some additional help, and in a statewide version so that we can see how chapters are doing against their peers. There's also an opportunity embedded in this to share best practices for chapters that are excelling in specific areas so that they can share their treats and their practices with other chapters that may not be doing as good in those areas. So the first 90 days would be spent on setting what those metrics are and creating a format to collect this information so that sorors can get updates quarterly on how they're performing, and we know that we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Soror Faber. Soror Leary, I will repeat the question for you. What is your overall vision for New York State, and how will you ensure measurable outcomes across all chapters?
Thank you for that question. My overall vision for the state is, of course, will be measured when it comes to expansion of our chapter membership, when it comes to recognizing the fact that chapter finances also vary from chapter to chapter. We want to measure how a chapter's finances are going to grow, how they're going to be fortified. We want to make sure, for example, that we are compliant with our IRS, with the IRS. We want to make sure that there is retention, and those we can include by number. We want to make sure that chapters continue to grow. We also want to make sure that we can measure how much we participate in our national initiatives and in our regional initiatives by making sure that chapters, of course, keep record and the state keeps record of all of the activity that the chapters are doing. We also recognize that there are chapters that need communication and assistance. And once I dig into those chapters and give them the opportunity to grow the way they want to grow, that measurement will be easily seen, because if they are not active in certain aspects that they want to be, by the very next year they will be, and they will continue to progress at a pace that is comfortable for them, at a level that is comfortable for them. I believe that chapters all have the ability to grow and also have the ability to make sure that they dig into the programs and to the Z-Hope programs, the social action programs that are going to allow them to grow. And those programs are measured, of course, yes, by our Z-Hope. Those programs are measured by the way we do reporting. And I'm going to make sure that the reporting stays true, that the reporting stays accurate as it is, and to just encourage them to grow in the way that they want to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Soror Leary. Soror Morrison Roper, you are next. What is your overall vision for New York State, and how will you ensure measurable outcomes across all chapters?
Thank you so much for that question. So my vision is to create a more united, responsive, and empowered Empire State. And with the implementation of my New York State engagement survey, I've actually been able to collect a decent amount of data to realize that what the state is looking for is completely in alignment with what I'm looking to offer. And that's super important because we need to make sure that as your future state director, we're meeting your need very tangibly and very much in real time. So that's the reason why I'm asking. So once we decide that we're going to move forward with these goals, they have to be SMART goals, right? And we've all heard the spiel. It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? So let's take one of my core commitments. I will use empowered chapters. In the survey, it said that you're looking for leadership support, access to resources, and the state would like equity, right? So specific, we want to build an Empire State Resource Network, right? I have that in my platform, leadership infrastructure. Then I have to make sure that the goals that surround that are measurable. So I'm having a monthly Bacilli roundtable. Well, I have to set my goals. I'm looking for greater than 70% of participation to make my target as your state director. There's going to be state trainings throughout the year, and I'm going to I'm going to put a number on it, right? It's going to be 4. There's going to be greater than 60% of chapters that can attend at least 2 trainings during that period of time. Chapter development and support, I have to track the challenges and publish targeted solutions every year. Satisfaction survey for the state. I need to make sure I have greater than 65% or 75% of a response rate, if even to say that it's a successful survey. And it has to be achievable. I have to create the tools that make us successful, and onboarding and training. Make sure it's relevant. It has to meet the needs of your chapter right now, and I can deliver it within 5 to 6 months.
Thank you, Sora Morrison Roper. Sora De Leon, what is your overall vision for New York State, and how will you ensure measurable outcomes across all chapters?
Thank you. My overall vision for New York State is making it a place that is inclusive, where all SOARs can be seen and heard. The reason why we have Pearls of the Empire and the Roundtable for every chapter in New York to be represented is because we need to make sure that there's language and making sure that SOARs are seen in all spaces, no matter where they're coming from. One of the reasons that I talk about equity in my platform as well is because I think about the lottery system. And one of the things that I've shared when I visited you is that when we are at these roundtables, on the chapter level, you don't have to be in an executive board position in order to receive a title. It'll happen via lottery. That way, everybody in that space has an opportunity to serve. So I think about a real equitable, inclusive place where there is no monopoly. In terms of measurement, there are 3 things at all times that I'll be thinking about. Engagement, are people showing up? Capacity, are people getting stronger? And impact, is anything actually changing? So when we think about galvanizing, we're thinking about belonging and engagement. So that's chapter participation, rates at initiatives. That's also making sure that there's member retention year over year, making sure that we have new member intake as well, and making sure that we are measuring success and the metrics in each space. When I think about restoration, that's culture and conflict resolution, right? Enhancing our culture. So making sure that there's a number of restorative sessions had and that we're tracking that. Making sure that there are satisfaction surveys that are happening consistently. Success looks like fewer conflicts, less grievances, because we're dealing with it on the chapter level. Organizational skill programming, making sure that we have those partnerships on paper, making sure that there are a number of skills-based workshops happening. All of that is things that can be data, that can be measured because it's data. So that is what's very important to me. And success looks like member no longer saying, I didn't know how, or I wasn't included, or my voice wasn't heard. And members saying, we were able to create tangible change, and we were involved in that change, and our hands were on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sora De Leon.